on earth would you go to more ATS workshops if you know all the steps?
Because just knowing the steps doesn't mean that you've perfected them. And for me at least, when I started, I wanted to be the best that I could be at it. And so that meant constantly working on each step to get better and to perfect it. And I will never be perfect at it, but I can always try. I can always work to get better.
Do you still study something?
At this point with ATS, I don't, but I'm in a place where I'm really burned out. And so I'm studying other styles of dance instead, which is actually helping me with ATS. It's helping me as a teacher.
What are your favorite things to dance outside of ATS?
I'm really enjoying dancing Jill Parker's style. It's a lot of fun. I don't feel like competition is the only way to improve your dance. And I feel like competition goes against a lot of what ATS is about, because it's about teamwork. And it's about working with a group. And I feel like the concept of competition it goes against that. And even if you're tight with your group, you're competing with other groups rather than working with them. And I really feel like there are other ways to improve besides being competitive.
Do you feel like ATS is set to become the new social dance, or is it gonna stick to the rooms where people just dance and practice to go on stage with friends?
I would love to see it become a social dance. I think it's got a great potential for that. And that is something that I could see myself doing in the future, is teaching elderly people to do ATS as a way to have a social dance and have an activity and to help keep their mind sharp and help move their body. And I really would like to see more people focus less on performance and more on the fun aspect of it. Well, I think the United States is going through an identity crisis, where we have always been what we called a melting pot, and that was one of the things that I loved about ATS in the beginning, was I felt like it really reflected the melting pot of the United States. But now we have so many cultures that feel like they're marginalized, and they feel like the white people in the United States are taking the best parts of the culture, but not acknowledging the negative aspects. And there are also white people who are making money off of things where the people from the cultures are not making the same money off of it. And in terms of the word tribal, in the United States, we have this history of Europeans have come to this country and have taken it over from the indigenous people. And the government has referred to the indigenous people as tribes in a negative way, as a way to keep them down. And so for the indigenous people in the United States and Canada and North America, the use of that word is offensive to them because it's derogatory to them. It's not something that's seen as a positive thing. And so for white people to be taking that and using that is a way to continue to marginalize and keep down indigenous people.
There is this question, like everyone is talking, like, do we have to be trans everything now? Because it feels like if Amy changed the name of the style, everyone else should or should not. We haven't heard any reaction from Carolina about this, or any clarification on first dance, so people are confused about this as well. So what about using this word tribal? Like, is it okay still for us to use the word?
Absolutely. I feel like you should do what works for you. I decided not to use it because I live in an area where it is something that is seen as offensive, and I personally am not attached to that word, so I feel okay with letting it go. And if it's, for me, if it helps to make other people feel better, then I'm fine with not using it. But I think other people should do whatever they want. Even within the United States, if people feel strongly about it, they should continue to use that word. I'm not saying everybody has to change because I'm changing. So I think, for one thing, taking the word tribal away is not taking the dance away. The dance is still there, no matter what you call it. It might make things more difficult in terms of marketing, but it's not taking the dance away. And nobody's taking anything away from anybody by choosing not to use that word. And again, it's a different connotation in one culture than in another. In the United States, it's a more negative thing. In Europe, in Russia, it's not negative. So if you feel strongly about it and it's something you identify with, then I think you should keep using it.
You were talking about the history of ATS today. Do you think it's important for the dancers to know the history and, those people, or is it just enough to go to class and just learn the moves?
I absolutely think that you should learn the history, not just of ATS, but the movements in ATS come from other cultures. And so I think it's really important to go back to the roots, the very deep roots, of back to North Africa, to Egypt and to the Middle East, to experience the dance from their point of view and just experience the culture as a whole. In order to, you gain a greater context of the dance, and I think it makes your own dance practice deeper if you know where it's coming from.
Have you ever tried dancing ATS in the community with traditional belly dance, and how was it received in there? My only experience in a culture that is a culture where belly dance is normal was when I was in Morocco, and we came back to our riad and we heard drumming up on the roof, and so we went up to see what it was. It was me and Sandy and Felicia, who was one of our students, and we went up there, and the nomad guys who were working in the riad were drumming, and they were like, dance, and so we got up and danced, and they were like, okay, cool. But there was no question about where it came from or why are you doing this or anything like that. It was just kind of like, oh, cool, okay, you're dancing. It's natural for them to see a woman dancing to their drums.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing.
Yeah. What was the other part of the question? Was there another part of it?
That was it.
Okay.
For this particular question. Yeah.
I think I do know so the other part of dancing with people who do more traditional styles, I've been in shows with people who do more traditional belly dance styles who have out and out said that ATS is not belly dance. And so I'm like, okay, that's fine. If you feel that way, I'm not going to push the point. And when I first started studying ATS and I first started getting on the internet and looking it up, there were a lot of discussions that said, oh no, that's not belly dance. And
what is it then?
At one point when I was interviewing Carolina for my lecture, she said that it's a style of dance that's inspired by belly dance. So, you could call it belly dance. I do still tend to call it belly dance, but then again, there's also a lot of negativity around cultural appropriation and white women belly dancing. So I'm a little hesitant in the United States about that. So you can call it Middle Eastern dance, you can call it belly dance, you can call it fusion. It's really what it is fusion.
When you have to explain ATS in a very short, compact way to somebody who has never seen it before and has no idea about all sides of dancing and ethnicity, how would you do that?
I say that it's a group improvisational dance form that has a vocabulary of about 75 steps, and we dance in groups of 2 to 4. There's a leader and everybody else is following, and we string the steps together on the spot, responding to the music.
And people normally feel excited and like
they get it, and sometimes they say, "Oh, that sounds really interesting," or "It sounds really fun." Yeah. Definitely, I think, well, this time in Siberia, the response has been like really like, wow. I think it's been the biggest response that I've seen. I'm trying to think of where else I might have had the same level of response. And I feel like in Europe, in a lot of places, people are more enthusiastic. I feel like in the United States, people are a little more reserved. And it's interesting because even in cultures where the general population is really reserved, the belly dancers are not. So they're generally like super enthusiastic, even if the rest of the population is very kind of closed down.
I see you're making a lot of your own jewelry. What was the start from this whole thing? It's like you didn't see something you like on the market and decided to improve it, or what was the trigger?
Well, way back, a million years ago in the 80s, I worked in a salon that carried handmade jewelry that was made from watercolor paper, and it was painted, and so I started making my own, just experimenting with that. And then I started using beads and different elements, and in the late 90s, I had a coworker in the hair salon who had a boyfriend who was a wearable art jewelry designer who was very high-end, who had done things for Fashion Week in New York. And I started working for him doing assembly. And he used these over-the-top beautiful elements to his jewelry that a lot of them were very tribal. And so working for him and putting things together and seeing what he used and how he put it together really inspired me. And I was working for a jewelry import place at the time, but I found that everything I did was too much like his, so I just quit. I quit doing jewelry for about 10 years. And then I started picking it up again, just as something to keep my hands busy and to keep my mind busy. And I found that I had internalized a lot of his aesthetic, but I had changed it to fit my own. And so then I became re-inspired, and I started wanting to make jewelry again, just to have my own voice with it. And so I feel like I've taken inspiration from a lot of different designers, especially being in the belly dance world. There are some amazing costume and jewelry designers, and I feel like I've gotten inspiration from them, but I'm learning how to take it and make it my own and have it not be derivative of other people.
Also, you're wearing Melodia design stuff, and the people in the class, they have Matador designs.
Yeah.
And Carolina came up with Bessie. And this is all not traditional ATS gear, but suddenly the feel of the dance stays the same, but the aesthetic keeps changing with all those new things. Do you think that's okay?
I think so. I think it's good to switch it up. I've been doing ATS for 23 years, and now I honestly I like seeing the costume evolve, and it's been interesting to see it evolve because I got tired of the old look. And then seeing the more modern look that people were doing, I got really interested in, and then I started kind of getting tired of that, and now I'm finding the old look to be really, really inspirational again. But then also kind of, it goes up and down. But then I also get so tired of having so many pounds of costuming and jewelry and hair that it's really nice sometimes to have a pared down, more minimal look. I think it's an interesting time because it is a young style, and we're all involved in it, we're all participating in it, and we're all participating in the evolution of it. And I think that that's really pretty exciting. I don't know what it's going to be like in the future, but I think it's pretty exciting to be involved in it now and be seeing that happen kind of in real time.
Since you've spent so many years with FCBD, you definitely learned from each other in there, right?
Yeah.
Who was your favorite teacher in FCBD to learn from, like get the new tricks, new fills?
Karen Gurman, I think, was, she was a huge influence on me, and a lot of it was because our body type was very similar. I'm not built like Carolina at all. Carolina was my only teacher for the first 4 years of my student life, and I love learning from her, but there was a certain amount of frustration that I didn't look like her, and seeing Karen do things and seeing how she owned the movements in her body kind of made me be like, oh, okay, I can look like me doing this. I don't have to try and look like somebody who's way smaller than me. And Karen actually was able to give me tips on how to position my arms and position my body to really wear the dance form myself. And she also was a huge influence on my musicality. I got all of my musicality came from her.
So is it us being fitted into the dance form, or the dance form being fitted to us?
Well, I feel like at this moment in time, it's more that the form that we're supposed to force ourselves into, and the way that I learned it, it was more you learned how to fit it to your body. And I understand because it has to be codified and it can't be, you know, here and there at the same time. So I can understand that, but at the same time, it doesn't fit every body now, where I feel like the way that I learned it, you could adapt it to your frame and still make it work.
I hear a lot of discussion as well, but it's mostly happening on the other side of the pond, your side of the pond, because we wouldn't have that problem because we didn't have that many guys in the class. About teaching boys ATS, whether it should stick to being a female dance form or there should be a variety as well. And some of the teachers are saying things like, I don't know how to teach boys because they're built differently, but from my personal snobbish, and I admit that, snobbish point of view, if you don't know how to teach a different body type, it doesn't matter if female or canine or whatever, you're just not a really good teacher. So is it still a female dance form, or is it just a dance form for everyone who's ready to teach and get ready and get fitted?
Well, back when I was a student and a new teacher at the studio, Carolina didn't allow men in the beginner classes, and it was because 99% of her student base were women, and if a man came into class, sometimes women would leave because they didn't feel comfortable exposing their bodies in a place where men were there and they could possibly be judging them and, you know, looking at them. And so that's why Carolina initially excluded men. And in the beginning, the other reason for that was that there were some men who would come to class who would just suck all the oxygen out of the room and make it all about them. And there were times where there were men in classes when I first started, before she made that rule, and I remember initially being like, what is he doing here? And then after a while realizing that he didn't care about me, he was just there to learn. And then I was okay with it. I didn't want to be in a situation where I felt like men were there and I was there for their pleasure or for their gaze, but that was never the case in the classes that I was in where there were men. And later on it was more just because there were certain men with really strong personalities who were taking up all the attention. And it's hard in our society in the United States for women to have a voice anyway. And so I think initially the reason for that was to give women a place where they could have their voice. And I feel like things have changed somewhat now, and we do have more men who are interested in it, and I think that they should be included. There's been a lot of talk about inclusivity in general. At the last reunion there was a panel discussion on it because there are people who don't identify with the body that they were born into. They might be non-binary, meaning they don't identify as male or female, whatever. And I don't feel like they should be excluded from it because they want to do it too. Initially I had some reactions to it because it did start out as a female dance form, and that's kind of changed. But if you go back to the earlier roots of belly dance, where this comes from, where ATS comes from, it was not a female-centric dance form in the first place. Men were always involved in it. And so you can't change history and say that it was always a female dance form and a dance form meant to celebrate femininity, because historically it's not. Maybe ATS started out that way, but that's not the way it is now. And I feel like in order to survive, we have to adapt and change. And I don't think that it, again, takes anything away from anybody to include people who want to be included. If they're included and they're being like an integral part of the community and they're contributing and not taking away from it, then why shouldn't they be included?
What's your dream performance? Like the perfect ideal performance? Who would be in your troupe? What music would be playing? What's the venue?
Oh.
I'm not asking easy questions.
That's God, I don't really know. You're making me think about that one now. I think my dream performance would have been the real OGs of Fat Chance, which would be Carolina, Rena, Jill, Suzanne Elliott, and even Karen, who was one of my teachers, like seeing the old Fat Chance in a venue in San Francisco, like Theater Artaud, some of the shows that they did there, with, I think, the old folkloric recorded music that they used to use a lot for their performances. That's a lot of the stuff that is out of print now. It's interesting because in the Facebook Sister Studio group, or in the ATS for Music group, there was a question about what do you consider old school music? And the stuff that people are listing as old school is not stuff that I consider old school. It's stuff, I mean, Helm's great, but to me Helm is not old school, because we started working with them much later in my dance career. So the stuff that I think of as old school is the stuff that Fat Chance did before I was within the troupe. It's the stuff that you could only find on cassette tapes. And you know, we had this suitcase of cassette tapes that were all of our sets, that were, a lot of them were stuff that we didn't even really know the real names of. We had nicknames for it, and it came off of vinyl albums that were converted to cassette, and they're out of print now. So that's the kind of stuff that I think of as old school.
You have this absolutely hilarious video of your "I made a mistake on stage" face. A lot of the people will be like, "Oh no, I'll never show it to the public," and you go like completely in the opposite direction and just say, "This is so funny, I have to show it to you." Why are you so brave?
I don't know that it's brave, but I feel like, you know, I'm somebody who's pretty well known in the community. I'm under a microscope. And for people who know the dance form, they're going to watch it and they're going to see that, they're going to be able to tell in that split moment that I made that mistake face. So why would I try to hide that? You know, I'm just going to be real about it. Like, I made a mistake. Look, here, let me show it to you. Let me make it funny, because in the end, I don't think that we should take it too seriously. You know, I think that we need to still have fun.
Like rules in ATS, like unbreakable super rules.
I think you could say there are. I mean, we definitely have a code of conduct that we try not to break, and I feel like when you're dancing in a group, you would never want to do anything that tricks the people you're dancing with or makes them look bad. You know, when you're in the lead, it's like you're trying to make the whole group look good. You're setting everybody up for success. And so you wouldn't want to deliberately do anything that would make everybody else look bad but makes you look good.
What's the perfect ATS dancer like? What are the traits that should be in an ATS dancer?
A dancer?
Yeah. It can be personal traits or dancing traits, whatever. Something
humility. I think when I was in Fat Chance, pretty much the entire group that was in at the same time as me didn't have a lot of ambition to be in the troupe or to perform. There were a lot of us who just went to class and we just wanted to get better at it, and never expected to end up being part of the performing troupe or teaching or any of that. And I think that that's a really necessary trait. And this book that I've been reading, that I was telling you about, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a he actually talks about people who are most successful in performing arts and in some skills are people who didn't go into it with the ambition of being successful at it. They went into it and their ambition was to get better at it, but not to be a star. And those are the people who tended to be the most successful at it.
Fabulous. Thank you. How many matryoshkas do you have at home now?
Not that many, actually. I bought a bunch of them, but I've given them away to other people. I have 2.
Well, she's good. It's a good start. For
Yeah, I have, and one of them I didn't actually get in Russia. There's this really kitschy French store that they have great kitchenwares and stuff, and they had a set of matryoshkas that was a woman who's fully dressed in the first one, and every one she's more undressed, and the very last one she's naked.
Okay, that's kitschy.
It's very kitschy, but I thought it was really funny. And then I have the set that's all of the Russian leaders. And so at one point I had one of them on either side of my door, and so it was kind of like a political scandal and matryoshkas.
Thank you so much, and thank you for coming and teaching us.
Thank you for having me.
Have you always.
Yay!